Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. Today is a very special day. It is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. My executive's newest book, which is his fourth overall and his first traditionally published work through Simon Acumen, is out today. If you are interested in learning more, you can check out leanlearningbook.com, which actually leads us into today's topic. Esteemed colleague Meredith wrote in via askanassistant.com with the following question. Hey, Jess, I'm looking for creative ways to celebrate milestones. I'd love some tips. Meredith, thank you so much for writing in. You know I'm going to say it. I love this question. Celebrating is something that I really feel like we don't do enough of at work. There are a lot of ways, big and small, that you can celebrate. Big awooga noises, caveat up top. You need to speak with the legal and financial professionals in your life before doing any kind of celebration, whether it's an overall annual budget that you need to set for the entire company, if it's a per person, per role, per department kind of budget. They're going to let you know, your lawyers, your accountants, they're going to let you know what's allowed in your potentially city, state, country, and what's allowed in your industry and what's allowed by budget. So without any further ado, here are some celebratory ideas that I have pulled from my career. I've definitely worked at some companies that have less budget for employee recognition, celebration, what have you. So these are definitely examples from times and companies where I had a lot of autonomy, a lot of purchasing power. So I hope that you can take some of these ideas and incorporate them in whatever way makes sense for your situations. But for new hires, that was definitely something that I really enjoyed. I, for about a year and a half, worked at a pretty high growth company where we had an average of, I want to say, like 8 to 10 new hires a month. And those were just the ones that would come through the office. We had two main offices, one in California, one in Minnesota, and people got their choice. You know, they could come to Minnesota for training. They could go to California for training, onboarding more than training, because everybody was in different departments. And then I would always have a handful of folks remote as well. But those were just the people who would come through the office, about 8 to 10 a month, which is a lot. We definitely have weeks where we had 0 new hires. And then sometimes we'd have weeks where it averaged out to 2 or 3. Sometimes if we had a hiring break for a couple of weeks, then we'd have 5 or 6 for a couple of weeks in a row. But I would say it definitely averaged out to about 8 to 10 a month. And I developed the routine, I guess I would say, of having hot breakfast in the office on Mondays when we had new hires. We had a lot of folks who would work remotely or who were on the road, and to really encourage other employees to fill up the office, having hot breakfast was a good draw to get people in for sure. We had really great options in the area, and it was just easy to set those up a week or two in advance. Like, hey, whatever restaurant, hey, whatever catering, I need hot breakfast for X number of people. And it didn't even necessarily have to be like breakfast food. Like, you didn't have to do eggs and bacon. You could do whatever someone was willing to give you at 8 o'clock in the morning, if you could get it. And more like 9, because I'm not a morning person. But definitely having the office feel fuller was a great way to welcome new hires into the company. And then on Thursday of the orientation week, I would also have an in-office happy hour to also encourage some of those folks who were working remote. Come on in. It's not Friday. You can make it on a Thursday. I always have great food, great drinks, all that stuff, and just really helped fill in the office, make the new hires feel really welcomed and celebrated, and would get to wash, rinse, and repeat and do the whole thing over every week that I had new hires. Your company growth and budget will vary. Like, I've definitely worked at companies where my budget was like $2 a head for any kind of celebration. And I've definitely worked at companies where I had like 10, 15, 20 bucks a head for any kind of celebration. Your growth is also going to vary. Not every company is hiring an average of 8 to 10 new people every month. Sometimes you might hire like one a month or one a quarter. So just depending on what your company growth looks like, what your budget looks like, do whatever you can to help new hires feel welcomed and celebrated. Please do. It's a great way to set a first impression with folks and keep that momentum going as long as you can. There is absolutely nothing worse than having the big hoorah, oh, my orientation day was blah, blah, blah. And then 6 months later, the company goes through budgeting, restructuring, what have you. And then all of a sudden things kind of get tightened up. So don't go too nuts, but definitely make a long-standing, sustainable system of making people feel welcomed and celebrated. On the flip side of that, company departures that are not retirement. This one is definitely going to depend on if the circumstances were happy or less happy. There's always going to be mixed emotions over a change in personnel. The person who's leaving might be excited for their new role or unexpectedly out of a job. The team that's losing a person may feel stressed until a new hire is found, or they may be super relieved that that person is leaving. I really found that this is at the same company with the breakfast and the happy hours, that the weekly happy hour really served double duty, both in welcoming new hires and in sending any outgoing staff off on a high note. Career milestones, like multiples of 5 or 10 years of service, I have definitely ordered way too many plaques and other physical rewards over the years. If you ask any employee, they'll likely tell you that they would really prefer a cash bonus, a gift card, technology, like a new iPad, a new phone, a new Apple Watch, what have you. But these bonuses can be really difficult to just give to an employee. Again, you're going to want to talk to your legal and financial professionals. Always, always, always. For example, my executive has over the years said he wants to give me a cash bonus. I've looked into it. Like I work at a company of 2. I wear a lot of different hats. Lightly managing our payroll is definitely one of those things. Like ultimately the buck stops with my executive, but I do manage Gusto, which is our payroll HR software platform. I've looked into it. For the company to give me a $500 bonus after taxes, the company checking account for taxes, fees, what have you, needs to pay about 40% above the $500 mark for me to get the full $500. And if we just set it at $500, like, he just says, okay, you get a $500 cash bonus that goes onto my paycheck, it gets taxed, I would net around $290. So this is why we all end up with a bunch of plaques and trophies instead of cash. Those awards are not considered taxable income, whereas cash bonuses, I've even worked at companies where something as simple as a $20 coffee gift card gets reported on my paycheck. Like I remember receiving the gift card and being like, wow, what a nice surprise. And then getting my pay stub a week later and saying, wow, what a not so nice surprise. So again, just talk with your legal and financial professionals. They will be able to give you guidance as to what you can and cannot do, what those rules look like, what the per person, per company, per year, what have you, budget needs to look like for that. What's taxable, what's not. Some companies do offer things like sabbaticals, trips, other huge milestone awards. Depends on the health of the company, depends on their budget, all that good stuff. Personally, I have not yet worked in a company that had a lot of 5, 10, 15 plus year milestones. But now that I'm thinking about it, and now that I'm recording this episode, my executive has been doing his thing for about 15 plus years, and I've been with him for 12 of those years. So maybe it's time for both of us to take a little sabbatical and or have a little milestone celebration of our own. Retirement is another huge milestone that practically demands celebration, depending on how long someone's been with the company. Like, you probably don't give the same kind of send off to someone who spent like 2 years of their career at your company before retiring. But if somebody's been with you like 10 plus years, even 5+ years, like I have sent people off on cruises. I have purchased credit card limit testing amounts of technology and designer handbags that honestly I would be really nervous to carry around myself. Those are some major highlights of things that you might celebrate at work, but I really like to encourage people to celebrate more often. Like, pop some champagne when you land a new client, go out for a fancy meal when you complete a huge project, or get everyone their favorite candy bar because it's Wednesday. Like, my executive and I have a long-standing tradition of celebrating with enamel pins when we hit milestones or complete huge projects. We've definitely done our fair share of the champagne popping, the fancy meals and all that, but we really like having a tangible reminder of what we did. Our collections are huge and growing, especially here in 2025. We have already completed some pretty big, pretty exciting things in 2025, and Q3 just started. Like, we're at the halfway mark of the year, and things are only going to get better from here. And definitely, after supporting my executive through the last 4 years of his book journey, you can bet there's going to be some celebrating today, both in California, where he's based, and in New York, where I'm based. And that's it for this week. As always, I hope you are feeling happy, healthy, and hydrated, or whatever combination thereof. Would love to hear from you. As always, askanassistant.com. Lay your comments, questions, thoughts, and concerns on me. And I would really like to know, how are you celebrating milestones at your company? Big ones, small ones, in between ones. How are you celebrating individual accomplishment? How are you celebrated by your executive? I want to know. Askanassistant.com is where you can get in touch. And until next week, as always, take care.